How's it going, Asheville? Well, first and foremost, thank you to the family, to Emory Paving for having us here today. It's just great to see a nice family business. Some of those family businesses work out great. I know, you guys said you were fourth generation, we're now third. Other family businesses tend to leverage off the American people, as we've seen over the last 48 hours with Hunter Biden selling access to the presidency and the vice presidency. But, you know, yeah, no, it's funny, right? Imagine Donald Trump Jr. did that. You think you'd hear about it? You think that maybe, I don't know, Facebook would censor it? No, I think they'd be boosting it. It would be the only story on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. But because I started calling it out, I looked at my analytics on social media, and I'm probably doing about 10% of what I was doing last week on a given post. So they're just, you know, anything to help the Bidens. But my father did this not because he needed the job, but he did it because he wanted to do anything he could to help Americans. Americans who need it. Americans who are sick of the bureaucracy. Americans who are sick of incompetence. Guys, in all fairness, if Joe could have fixed anything, don't you think he would have done it by now? No, seriously. I'm going to go to the family because you guys are experts. If you had someone trying to fix a road for 47 years and it was still broken, the paving still had not been completed, would you keep them on, or would it be time to find a new job? Yeah, they'd get the Cobra, right? Like the old Apprentice days. You're fired. But Joe's going to fix it now after a half a century in the Washington, D.C. swamp. Why didn't you do it? Joe, why didn't you do it before? You know, I know some guys that take a little while to warm up. They get new to a job. 47 years? Oh, no, seriously. Like, because it's pretty ridiculous that we're even being told this. But then when you have all the stuff coming out, I mean, I take this one personally myself, simply because I know what they tried to do to me for 3 years. Remember this? I had committed treason, according to members of the Intelligence Committee, the former vice presidential candidate, head of the Intelligence Committee, people in the Senate, for doing absolutely nothing. Now, that was totally disproven. Didn't stop them from running it with it for 3 years, but now we actually have foreign corruption, right? You have the stuff from the Ukraine, that's kind of a big one, right? Selling access, the emails are there, right? It's as plain as day. And all of a sudden now, the media and the Democrats, well, the meeting in question was not on Joe Biden's official schedule. Oh, in that case, notice that wasn't the question that was asked, right? The question that was asked was, did you take the meeting? If the response to the question is not an answer to the question, but just something to distract, doesn't that tell us all we need to know? But the media, rather than actually pursue this, I mean, after 4 years of looking for this kind of foreign interference, now it's there. And rather than pursue it, they attack the newspaper. They did it. The same press that got mad when Donald Trump, who happened to be 100% right, calling them the fake news about the Russia hoax, actually has a real hoax. Rather than go after the crime, they go after the newspaper. The people who were outraged that someone would attack the free press, even if they're totally biased, are now attacking a 200-year-old newspaper. I mean, this isn't like the National Enquirer, right? It's the New York Post. It's like one of the largest newspapers in the country. The reporting is fine, and more importantly, no one has denied that the emails are real. You know, Joe Biden went into hiding yesterday. He sent out a great tweet today. It's only 15 days, we're finishing strong. He put a lid on his campaign until Thursday at the debate. Going into hiding for 4 days with 15 or 16 days left does not feel like we're finishing strong, but they know something. They know something that you all know and have witnessed with your own eyes for the last 4 years. They can get away with it because no one's going to question them. If the Republicans were doing it, it would be a different story, but the Democrats, they can go. He can hide in his basement for 4 days, not answer questions about corruption, corroborated by another guy that was part of it, Someone else given access to all 27,000 emails immediately. They go into their disinformation mode. It was the Russians. You guys know the little story about the boy who cried wolf, right? They've been doing this one for 4 years. It was the Russians. How come Hunter's lawyers have a letter to the store asking for the laptop back? If it's a plant and it's not real. Now, more importantly, if it's not real, you would think it'd be really easy for the Biden campaign to come out and say, no, this stuff didn't happen. These emails aren't real, because you'd think that if they weren't real, that would end the issue. But they're not doing it because they know what's happened. And this is a pattern, right? That's Ukraine. What about the $3.5 million from the Russian oligarch to Hunter for services? Oh, wonderful. Services. You think I could have given services to Russians? Unlike Hunter Biden, before the presidency, I was actually an international business person. That's what we did. Hunter became one when he could sell his father's office. And Joe knew it. We all know that, right? Right? He's the vice president of the United States. He probably has access to more information than anyone other than the president. Pretending he didn't know that his son was peddling millions of dollars worth of influence. Right? $3.5 million from a known Putin associate. That's sort of another one of those Russia collusion. There it is. There's the smoking gun. But now it's on the other foot, so no one has any interest. That was money that was tied to prostitution rings in Eastern Europe, human trafficking rings. Man, if Donald Trump did that, if Donald Trump's family did that, if Donald Trump Jr. did that, that seems like it would be a really, really, really big story. Nope. Just like Hunter taking $1.5 billion from the Chinese government for his fund. And so we understand how a fund works, guys. There's usually a 2% management fee and 20% of the profit. So let's assume Hunter's as good a fund manager as Joe Biden is a public speaker. Let's just assume. No, well, come on. The truth hurts sometimes, folks. But let's just say there's no profits. 2% on $1.5 billion is $30 million a year to the Biden family. Where do you think that, Joe, sort of amazing. Once they got out of office, his income went from $350,000 a year to like $17 million. Where do you think that came from? Most presidents give speeches. They'll rack up some money. Probably not $17 million. They'll rack up some money. The vice president, probably much less than a former president. But I have a feeling that no one was paying Joe Biden to give speeches because, in all fairness, we've seen how that works out, right? If this was a Joe Biden rally, sir, I don't mean to isolate you or pick on you, okay? But you would be, it's a rally of one. Now, one person shows up, you'd be sitting right there where you are, and Joe Biden would be staring off into the teleprompter right here. And I, Joe Biden, after half a century in the swamp, peddling influence, with no real accomplishments that anyone could name, am going to finally change that and fix things. Pause for applause. Resume speaking. And I, Joe Biden, trust me, that guy wasn't getting paid to give public speaking stuff, okay? That's just not what he was doing, okay? But now we see that, and no one has any interest. The focus continues to be to attack Donald Trump. But why not look into Joe Biden's record? In all fairness, we're here. This is an American family business. You guys build stuff. Let's look at what Joe Biden does, because I hear every day he's going to be the savior of blue-collar America. I don't know. I think Donald Trump did pretty well for them. I think he grew jobs. He grew 401ks. He brought manufacturing and is continuing to bring it back from China and elsewhere so we can build things in America for a change. What'd Joe Biden do? He supported TPP, he supported NAFTA, and he supported China's permanent status in the World Trade Organization. 3 things that did nothing other than ship your American dream abroad. That's what he did. He's made a career of it. His son today, I hate to keep picking on Hunter, but it's such an easy target. His son today owns 10% of a Chinese company that's taking jobs, blue-collar jobs, and American technology out of Michigan and sending them to China as we speak. Guys, isn't that the hypocrisy we can't stand in D.C.? Isn't that what we hate about Washington, that that kind of stuff can go on totally unchecked? Okay, but he's going to fix it now. Why? What's he going to do differently? He's probably compromised by those countries, because trust me, if they gave Hunter that much money, I'm sure they got plenty on Hunter. Right? It's not like the Chinese are giving him $30 million a year in fees because they think he's a great investor. No one had heard of him prior to his father's office, right? We all know that. We see that now, hopefully. But again, when I put something like that out on social for people to actually see and make up their own mind, I get crushed. Just look at my analytics. Look at my posts from last week on Instagram and look at them over the last 48 hours. Look at the numbers yourself. You'll see it. The only difference is I pursued a different line of attack, one that would hurt Joe Biden and the Democrats and therefore media and social media. And that's why you guys come in and are so important. We don't have the benefit of a mainstream media that's going to campaign for us. We can't go hide in a basement and emerge once every couple of days and be lauded as though they'd done something. We don't have that luxury. We have to get out there. We have to be in the field. We have to be talking directly to you. And you guys need to call your friends. You need to reach out. Make sure they understand what's at stake. Make sure they're not lazy. Make sure they're registered where you still can. Make sure they go vote or bring them yourselves. This election at this point, honestly, it's Americans versus algorithms. If we don't do this now, we don't take on big tech and stop the censorship. And again, it's not just politics and just conservative politics. How about, like, if you're pro-life? If you're pro-Second Amendment? And honestly, at this point, if you're just a Christian, they're censoring you and suppressing you. You've all seen it, I bet. You can see it the second you put up one of those. The next week, you're looking at it and like, man, what happened? I know people in some of those industries, or they pay for promotion and lose followers. That's how it's structured. Notice that you've never seen it happen the other way. Some of the most vile hatred from the left doesn't get suppressed, doesn't get censored, doesn't get deplatformed. They don't get thrown off of the platforms. I got thrown off a couple weeks ago. I put up a little meme. It was, basically a meme, like a joke meme about Kamala Harris calling Joe Biden a racist, right? And I got fact-checked immediately. She never called him a racist. I go, really? Did you watch the Democrat debates? You guys watched it, right? I mean, that was a clown show, but but remember that little speech? That little girl was me. If it was anyone other than Kamala Harris, it would actually be pretty effective. Like, she's just so disingenuous. She's such a phony that I could sell that better, including the little girl part. Seriously, I would be more effective in delivering that message, even if I called myself a little girl. People are like, okay, baby. How dare you? You don't know how I identify. All right? But you remember that speech. She goes on for minutes about how he palled around with every segregationist that ever walked the halls of Congress. He supported busing. He said quotes like, I don't want my kids going to school in a racial jungle. Everyone knows exactly what she called him, but she didn't use the word. So they take me down, they shut me down, they rip down the post, suppress me for a while for putting up something that everyone knows exactly what she said. That's how it works. That's the battle we're in. That's why, again, you guys are so important. So you have a president that made promises in 2016. And I understand if in 2016 you were skeptical. Was Donald Trump going to deliver all the things he said? Was he going to do this for the economy? Remember Obama? There's no magic wand for that. Well, abracadabra. Abracadabra, Barack. No, it's not Barack's. It's not his fault. It's not his fault that he couldn't grow the economy. That it was like the slowest recovery in the history from a bad trough, right? So you'd think you'd be able to do a lot better just coming out of a bottom, right? That just, all they had to do is sit back and do nothing and it would have been okay. But instead, the excessive regulation and bureaucracy and the red tape and the government agencies and all the nonsense that just crush entrepreneurialism, that crush innovation, they pushed for all of that. So Barack Obama said, there's no magic wand for that. Well, there is a magic wand. Obama just didn't have it. But that's not his fault, again. It's our fault for thinking that someone who's never signed the front of a paycheck, only the back, only collecting, could do that. Someone who'd never done it, whose prior job was being a community organizer. You'd think you'd want a little experience. So it's our fault. We own that. But now we've seen the difference. Now we've seen what someone with experience can do, what someone who's actually had people's livelihoods, their families' well-being dependent on his success each and every day for decades, as my father did. Someone who actually employed tens of thousands of people and succeeded across a variety of businesses. That's why he was able to grow, because he was able to cut the things that slowed all those things down, because he knew what slowed them down when he was doing it himself. But it's not just the economy that's going great. I mean, think about it. This is the first time in American history we're seeing peace deals get done in the Middle East. It's kind of a big one. Kind of a big one, right? We've heard about these things for our entire lives. It's like some elusive magical Sasquatch that lives in the woods over there. We've heard about it forever, but we've never actually seen it. Right? It's like the holy grail of geopolitical politics. Peace deals in the Middle East. Donald Trump does 3. 2 in the Middle East and 1 up in Kosovo. Different region, same problem. Right? And you hear nothing. You hear nothing about it. That week when that was first announced, that was the week of the RNC, so my father gave a speech. My sister introduced my father at that speech, and I sort of tell the story because it sort of exemplifies how bad the media is, how much hatred they have. She gave a little speech, and she talked about her 3-year-old son, Theo, had built his grandfather a Lego White House. You guys remember that from the speech? Yeah, right? 3-year-old kid had built his grandfather a Lego White House, and immediately, TV. Did he do it by himself? You see Rachel Maddow's veins bulging out of her forehead. It's about to explode. Right? I was I don't know. He's 3. He probably had some help. What's your point? But it didn't matter. It was anything they could do. They'll cancel anyone, right? You saw what they did to Brett Kavanaugh. Right? Let's ruin his life, his career, his family. Who cares if it's all a lie? And then the people who lied about it, nothing happens to them. And then they did it to 16-year-old Nick Sandmann, right? What was his crime? He stood there with a smirk. It was a very violent and aggressive and dangerous smirk. By the way, raise your hand here if you think he showed much more composure than you would have in a similar situation. You don't think so? So that guy's the one guy that would have shown more composure, but I understand. It's okay. I wouldn't have. I'd actually be in jail. Okay? But that wasn't enough. But the one thing about Nick Sandmann, at least he fought back, and that's why he's the highest paid spokesperson at CNN. But then they go to a 3-year-old, and then they spend the time trying to cancel me and my father, my family. But think about it, guys. If they can do that to me, if they can do it to the President of the United States, who can't they do it to? And then more importantly, who won't they do it to? I mean, if you can pretend and sweep Middle East peace deals under the rug, remember when Barack Obama got his Nobel Prize? 11 days into his presidency. Not the second term, the first term. He didn't know where the sock drawer was yet, and he's getting Nobel Prizes, okay? When Donald Trump actually achieves peace in the Middle East, it's a little different because, Obama did that, and then he sent tens of thousands of our troops off to war that our own generals can't tell us why we're actually in them. Donald Trump is pulling us out of the endless wars, taking on that DC establishment. Right? Just like Donald Trump is funding the task forces to prevent human trafficking. A problem as old as time, right? Why is Donald Trump the first person to address these things? Why is he the first person willing to challenge that kind of sickness? I mean, think about it. That's nuts. We know why we're in the endless wars. Because someone at the Pentagon, their retirement plan is to get a board seat at Raytheon. Or Boeing or one of the many others, right? You don't get that board seat in the big package. If you're not selling and using missiles and other things. So they say we keep them in there. I've been in the room when my father has asked some of these guys. Hey guys, Explain to me why we're in Afghanistan after 20 years. I mean, this is a general. It's complicated. No, it's a big one. We got time. They have no idea. But they're willing to send our kids over there to fight for wars that they don't know why we're in, build roads, tunnels, bridges. I would rather build them in North Carolina than in Afghanistan. And the difference is, if the Emorys built them in North Carolina, guess what? They'd last. They wouldn't be blown up 2 days later where we could spend $1 trillion more of American taxpayer money down the tubes. And guys, that's the difference. That's what we're up against. This is about common sense. This is about freedom, our liberty, our Constitution. It's about leaving our children in America that they recognize in a few years. Because that's not what you're going to get for Joe Biden, because I see this all the time, right? The media, it's Joe Biden, it's moderate Joe. Moderate Joe. I mean, like, literally, I've never heard him actually spoken about on TV, I think, without moderate. Because they know that radical would scare off a lot of people in the middle and even some Democrats. But they don't say that. But he's moderate Joe. But guess what, guys? You're not moderate Joe with Kamala Harris as your VP. You're not moderate Joe with Beto, hell yeah, I'm going to take your AR-15 O'Rourke as your gun czar. And you're really not moderate Joe with Bernie Sanders as your platform. Taking Bernie Sanders' platform, a socialist Marxist platform, and making it your own. I understand Joe has a long history with plagiarism, but this is ridiculous, right? That's not moderate, right? But we get to hear it it's moderate Joe. Blue-collar Joe. I always laugh at when I hear blue-collar Joe. I'm like, blue-collar Joe? He's been a senator since his 20s. That's not blue-collar. I can say this with a deadpan straight face. I'm the son of a billionaire from Manhattan, and I have had more blue-collar jobs than Joe Biden. It's true. I've never driven pavers, but we were in construction and building, and so my father's theory was if you're going to build a building, you better damn well know how to build a foundation. And that doesn't mean, like, in theory. That means by having done it. So that's why I will say my brother and I are the only sons of billionaires that can drive a D10, because that's what we did during our summers. Joe Biden's never done any of those things. Hunter Biden's never done any of those things. Hunter Biden's first jobs were anything that peddled influence in Delaware, because that's where Joe was senator. Just like he got a six-figure job at MBNA, the largest bank in Delaware, where Daddy happened to be a senator, at 21 years old. Guess what legislation Daddy was signing there? He was doing all this stuff with credit cards to make it really hard for people to get out of bad credit card debt. Sounds like a payoff. Then he got board seats at Amtrak. Obviously, Hunter knows a lot about trains. It never ends. So that's what we're facing, guys. No one's going to tell you the truth on TV. No one's going to point out the facts. No one's going to talk about the economy or Joe's failed record. Joe's going to fix everything, right? The latest one I heard was Joe is going to fix racial tensions in this country. No, that's a good one. That's a noble cause. Why'd you wait 47 years? Seriously, no, because if it was me, and I really cared about an issue, I would have maybe used, I don't know, my 38 years in the United States Senate to do something about it. I would have maybe used, I don't know, my 8 years as vice president to the first African-American president to do something about it. But he didn't. It was Donald Trump that got prison reform done. It was Donald Trump that created opportunity zones. Donald Trump that did the First Step Act. And that wasn't even Republican Party platform type issue stuff. You know why he did it? Because it was the right thing to do. So we need a president that will continue to do the right things for America, not for China. If we wanted to create jobs in China, Joe is your guy. He's been doing it for half a century. If you want to do it here in America, to make things in America, to employ Americans, to put Americans back to work, Donald Trump is the guy for you. The guy that built the strongest economy America has ever known is the guy that can do it again, not the guy that's been talking for half a century without any results. And I get it, guys. If you know people that are on the fence because they're not into this stuff like you are, they're consuming 5 or 10 minutes of news a day and it's 96% negative, ask them this. Ask them to name a single Biden accomplishment. And if you can't name one after 50 years, isn't that the problem? I mean, isn't that the epitome of what America revolted against in 2016? Yeah, it is. So we need you guys to be part of this fight. We need you in the game. We need you active, okay? So get out there, bring your friends, vote, make sure they do too. And when we win, we're going to make liberals cry again. But more importantly, we're going to make America great again. Again. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys.